What do you do with my pen?
That's my pen.
No, it's not.
Yes, it is.
Always
that's my
arguing over something.
I'm taking that after we record because that is my pen.
Always arguing.
I brought those from home.
Let's get this show on the road. Just
Do you think
Hit the button.
kick it!
in some fashion to turn a profit that these people made more than one pilot G2
I'm gonna
pit?
try to get this show on the road. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another. Chet's already leaving. He's out.
He couldn't take it.
Anyway, welcome to another exciting episode of the Hardheaded podcast. Hardheaded. With me, as always, sitting across from me is Mr. Matt Amos, and usually to my right, Mr. Chet Sears, but he has
The swoosh is loose.
something must have happened to where he had to run out of the room for just a second. So he'll be back in a moment. But today, on today's episode, we have an exciting top three for you. What is it, Matt? Drum roll, please.
Top 3 practical jokes.
Yes. And I know we've all seen, all three of us, have watched the Office series. And they have some pretty good practical jokes on that show.
Matter of fact, what's your favorite one from that series?
Man, from that show, gosh. I mean, the classic one was when Jim put all of Dwight's stuff in the Jell-O mold.
Right.
Like, that's just a classic one that comes to mind.
I think personally my favorite is Asian Jim. So when he brings his actor buddy in,
Yeah.
and then changes the picture to where he's with Pam and the kids, and it just makes Dwight flip out. That's pretty funny because he's or future Dwight.
Yeah. That's good.
Where he gets the faxes from himself in the future.
When Jim acts like Dwight. He's dressed like him, got his hair.
Oh,
parted
that's definitely one of my favorites.
That's a good one.
Bears.
Any practical jokes with Jim and Dwight on that show were hilarious. So yeah. So also we're gonna dive into very shortly what is on Chet's mind today on the podcast. And here he is. All right. Yeah, we just kept going.
We're ready. Chet's back.
Omicron.
Omicron is on your mind.
Yeah.
All right, what about it? Tell me a little bit about it, because I have my thoughts about it, and I haven't done too much research into it because it's like the third.
So Omicron is the off-ramp of the COVID pandemic.
All right.
It's over after this.
According to
Science.
I only believe in science.
No, it's a good deal because we've got Omicron so far, studies have shown, and we'll look at South Africa because that's where everybody found it. So it's been there the longest. It's extremely contagious. It spreads faster than any other COVID variant, and 70 times more transmissible than even Delta. And the death rate in South Africa has not gone up at all because of Omicron. So it's spread very fast. A lot of people got it. Basically, what they're saying is if you haven't had it yet, everybody's going to come in contact with Omicron. So
if you haven't had it yet, you're bound to get it.
Or you're going to come in contact with it. You may not get it. You're going to come in contact with it. Right. So, which means those that have been vaccinated will probably come in contact with it. That coming in contact with it will help with their immunity because they'll get natural immunity plus the vaccine, mRNA immunity, spike proteins, all that good stuff that they have. Those that have already had it and have natural immunity will be able to fight it. Probably show little to no symptoms is what's coming in so far. And those that haven't had it at all, if you're going to have a COVID-19 variant, it's a good one to have because it's showing that it doesn't go to the lungs. So hospitalizations and deaths are not increasing. So it's more like a typical coronavirus that we have all known for decades, which is
flu, SARS.
No, the common cold is a coronavirus.
Ah, yes.
Influenza is not.
So you said the death rates in was it South Africa?
Yeah.
You said they haven't
increased as the positive cases have increased.
Okay, so you're just talking about specifically the metric of the Omicron.
Yes. So the coronavirus cases reported daily, that's a trend that everybody tracks. How many positive cases do we have today? That skyrocketed in South Africa with Omicron. Lots of people getting COVID. And typically there's a 2-week delay, which is one reason why you can't use U.S. data at the time of us recording this. There's not enough time for Omicron to have been here for the hospitalizations and then the deaths to occur, because typically your positive daily cases goes up 2, 3, 4 weeks later, your hospitalizations, and then a couple weeks after that, your deaths. So we've had enough incubation period for the data in South Africa, and positive cases, daily cases increased, and then the weeks go by and there's been no increase in deaths to follow the trend of positive cases. So that's really good. So this quote unquote herd immunity that everybody's talked about is not is going to come. It's coming through people being vaccinated and now exposures from Omicron. And if you're going to get exposed with something that doesn't attack your lungs.
So it by it not attacking the lungs, you mean it doesn't cause pneumonia?
Right.
Okay. Man, I got the fun stuff that caused pneumonia.
And then
so did you.
Yeah. And
you didn't.
Yeah, he did. He just didn't get it.
I did. I just didn't get the pneumonia. Thankfully.
But
that's the we got to do the pneumonia.
Yeah. So the other thing on top of all that, they're finding that those that have been infected with Omicron, and because it is not as severe, they're really curious about whether or not it'll give you the protections that you need against some of the other variants. And the study just came out of South Africa as well, that the natural immunities that you get from having Omicron variant protects you against the Delta variant. So that's it's very positive news. Other than everybody's going to come in contact with it, and it's extremely contagious. There's no way you're going to be able to prevent yourself. There's no
right, but I mean, ultimately, you're just going to get a cold.
It's going to be a severe cold, but it's not going to be. You're not going to get COVID pneumonia from it. And COVID pneumonia, as Troy knows, as I know, is what sends you to the hospital.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So what about this sinus stuff that's been going around? I mean,
I don't know.
There's like sinus congestion, just heavy cold, flu-like symptoms, stuff that's been going around. My dad had it a few weeks ago before Christmas.
Did he get tested?
He got tested, but my question is,
was it positive?
It was negative. It was negative for the flu. It was negative for COVID. It was negative for strep throat. But he had symptoms which could be all three of those. Is the Omicron testable? I mean, it is? Mm-hmm. Okay.
Well, that's what I was asking even before we started recording, is because, on Christmas Eve, I wasn't feeling real hot, not anything feverish or anything like that, just a, headache, which is one of the symptoms. And then I woke up Christmas Day, same kind of thing, just headache. And so I was like, well, I've got all these tests at home. And so I was like, I'm going to take a couple, and got the first one back and it was negative. Took the second one, it was negative. I was like, well, okay. But it was kind of the same thing. Sinus, like, just that roof of your mouth was just kind of scratchy but tested negative, went and took a couple of Advil, took a nap, got up, felt fine, but just kind of crazy. So, and I guess that's where I was going with that South Africa question is, when will we start seeing the death rate decrease? Because you said it hasn't changed, but I would assume if we're getting these protections from the Omicron strain, we would see the overall death rate from COVID,
now,
like COVID pneumonia go down.
That's a loaded, you don't know how loaded it is, but that's a loaded question, because Omicron being so transmissible that you're going to come in contact with it. So if you die, of any other thing and they do the COVID test and you have COVID, then that may be counted as a COVID death. So I don't know exactly what's going on in South Africa, but there is no direct correlation between the death rate and the increase in daily cases of Omicron, statistically proven out by multiple sources in Africa. So COVID's not going to kill you. Omicron isn't going to kill you or have the same effect on the death rate as much as Delta or all the other previous variants.
Right. I mean, you know, well, and there are groups of people that are immunocompromised that could have a detrimental effect on. I mean,
don't go out and invite yourself to get it.
Right. I mean, but that's standard operating procedure for as long as we've been around.
Yeah. So the normal and what we know now, and I don't want to bash everybody. I don't want to bash any individuals necessarily, but what we know now, and is even more evident with the Omicron variant, is that every drastic measure that was put in place previous, so lockdowns, closing schools, all the crazy stuff, shutting businesses down, we shouldn't have done that.
Right. It doesn't work.
And the sinus stuff that's going around now, the flu's back.
Really? It took a year off.
How many kids died of the flu in 2019? I heard it on the way to work this morning.
No idea.
I don't know.
Almost 200. Like that was a normal year.
Like nationwide.
Yeah, in the US. Like 200 kids dying of nothing but having the flu. So the lockdowns prevented that. But now that we're not locked down anymore, our normal routine illnesses are back. And we see that with head colds and sinus infections, stomach bug. We had a stomach bug, going around one of our kids' schools, about a month ago. Those are all back, but which is normal. And I think one of the reasons everybody's going out and testing themselves is they fear that it's a coronavirus whenever they get sick now.
Well, they get one headache, one sore throat, and they run out and got to
So
get tested.
there's been a run on tests.
So, I mean, I get it. I understand that.
Well, sure. And it goes back to what's the best way to handle this? Well, it's the same way that you should have been handling illnesses all along. If you have symptoms, don't go anywhere.
Yeah, stay away.
Yeah, don't go to school, don't go to work.
Don't go to church. My gosh. My kids used to get sick all the time from going to the church nursery. Because most likely, I mean, this is just my humble opinion, but people will keep kids home from school before they'll keep them home from church because it's like, oh, we got to go to church. That's our must do every weekend. Go to church on Sunday.
Yeah.
And I used to work in the nursery at our old church, and there'd be like 3 or 4 snotty kids in there every time. Anyway, I digress.
I'm just the whole thing, and now with Omicron not being as severe, I think the vaccine mandates ought to be able to back off a little bit because I think the mandates initially wanted to prevent overflow in hospitals.
Right.
Everybody said at first it prevented you from catching COVID and also prevented you from transmitting COVID, but we all know that is wrong.
Not true.
And the people that said it at the time have now come back and said something that disagreed with that, which we've heard multiple times from the quote unquote experts with all of this. And any expert you talk to outside of the medical field, they're typically always wrong as well. So, I mean, I'm not just picking on them, but I honestly think that the vaccine mandates ought to cease everywhere right now. I know there's a lot of legal issues about it, but if you just want to look at the science of it, it's not preventing you from catching it. It's not preventing you from spreading it. And now with Omicron, the benefit before, even though you could catch it and spread it, it would be less severe. Well, if you have a less severe variant that's dominating the world, why don't we back off of that? And for those that may disagree with me, I have been a proponent of vaccines. I've told relatives to get vaccines. I'm not anti-vax. I'm just anti-vax mandate. And I also have some people that are very close to me that have had extremely negative effects from vaccines. So I'm also know that there's a risk, and it's a big risk from getting a vaccine, which I think is why it's, number one, absolutely stunning that anybody is pushing vaccines on kids, because there's never been a severe risk with kids, and the vaccine mandates and vaccine, even college age. I don't think any university should be mandating vaccines for their students either.
I agree. That's all I'm going to say on that.
And then one of the other things I still think is astonishing is that there is an extreme negative treatment, I guess, of any medical professional that comes out with early treatment options still. And I think that's a crime.
I agree.
That there are multiple therapeutics that have multiple studies that show vast improvements on hospitalizations and death if you get early treatment by a multitude of different drugs. I'm not going to talk about. I'm not going to name them. There's a lot of different drugs that are out there. Some of them have very much so popular because of former presidents, and other ones nobody's ever heard of unless you're doing some research, and they don't have that negative connotation. But there's still the medical community is not adopted. The two things they've done: they've ignored natural immunity in every one of their public statements, and then they've also they've been so negative towards the early treatments. I may be different for you. I felt bad, got tested positive for COVID. They said, okay, stay home. And when you get this bad, then you go to the hospital.
No, that's exactly what they told me.
That's not, the medical community let people down by not having a protocol
plan
that was published to say, and that's bad. And if there was any discussions that took place behind closed doors, that's how we want it to be, because we want it to be really bad right out of the gate to encourage people to get vaccinated, those people need to be tried for criminal activity if that was a coordinated effort, in my opinion.
No, I would agree with that opinion. And there are like preventative measures that you can do, just add to, daily vitamins that you would take.
Yep.
To help your cells
battle. Where are you getting that from? Oh, not the mainstream medical community.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I did hear that one of the possible prevention methods that was working for some people was, as soon as they had the onset of symptoms, just see if you can get a Z-Pack like you would for a normal cold, and that the antibiotics in that actually helped prevent the pneumonia.
The zinc in it is the beneficial.
Well, they put me and my wife both on Z-Pack and prednisone the first time we went to the ER, which was day 4 of our illness, since we got tested. So that was one.
But that was late.
Yeah. It wasn't like day 1. I just got my test. They should have been like, okay, here's a prescription for Z-Pack.
Or I'm not feeling well and I had a close contact. Oh, go take a Z-Pack.
Yeah, start taking zinc or what? Yeah, whatever. Yeah.
But it's always too late. That stuff needs to happen like right up front.
Well, even when I checked in the hospital day 10, I was asking, can I get that whatever drug that was former president took?
Yeah.
I was asking.
Oh, the one he took was remdesivir.
Yeah, I was asking about that, and they were like, no, you're day 10. It's way too late for you to even.
Or are you talking about the one that starts with an H?
The hydroxychloroquine.
I don't know, whichever one. But I was asking about them, and they were like, yeah, you're too late. Just breathe your oxygen.
Yeah.
Shut up and breathe.
Shut up and try to breathe.
A couple of studies that are coming back, though, and definitely don't take me that I'm like, I love Omicron. Monoclonal antibodies are so far showing not to be nearly as effective in treating Omicron. But again, monoclonal antibodies did a very good job of making you feel better in a day or two, which also meant you weren't going to the hospital.
Right.
So a negative with Omicron is showing a little bit more resistant to the monoclonal antibodies that are out there that most of our first responders and all that have access to. But so there's some things that aren't working. They also are saying that some of these preventive measures, the early treatment measures that have been working on all the other variants, aren't necessarily as effective on Omicron. But at the same time, it's not as deadly.
Right.
So I think, based on what I'm reading, and I'm going out there and I'm getting sources that are not mainstream, but then if you start digging into the mainstream studies that are coming out, they may not be covered by mainstream media, but mainstream studies that are coming out are saying everybody's going to come into contact with this, and it's not nearly as deadly as what we've all experienced with all the other variants.
So is Delta and regular COVID-19 still out there?
It's yes and no.
Or is Omicron just taking over?
Taking over.
Okay.
It's
well, that's good news.
Because Delta was more transmissible than what we had seen before, and Omicron is 70 times more transmissible than Delta. Yeah.
I think I had Delta. I just like that name, Delta.
Delta. Can I help you?
All right. Well, thanks for sharing all that information there, Chet. I think we're going to take a quick break and then dive into our top 3 practical jokes. (1797) Establishing dominance. A young nation begins the formation of the world's most formidable fleet of naval ships with the commissioning of its first ship, the U.S. frigate Constellation. A lively blend of rosemary, lemon, and peppermint, 1797 is a great blend to start your day. It has a great awakening quality with a minty kick. Much like stepping out on a deck of a ship cruising the brisk ocean waters, this blend will give you that early morning boost. 1797. Establishing dominance.
Check it out at admiralspennant.com. Without it, you might as well shave. Almost messed it up again.
And we're back. All right, we're going to get into our top 3 practical jokes. So I have that's all we gave you guys to go do. So, I mean, Troy, you're going to go first. Are these practical jokes that you just researched, or are they something you were a part of?
These 3 have been a part of or have seen done.
Okay, and your list?
So far, I really came up with 2 like that are just off the charts, like the best ones I've ever seen, and I'm not sure about my 3rd one yet.
But seen like personally?
Yes.
Okay.
Or been a part of.
So that's where we all are, which is good.
Okay,
I'm glad we went that
Now,
direction.
I did look online and looked up some practical jokes that were pretty funny. Most of them were kind of from The Office, but yeah, these 3 are 3 that happened in the frat house in college. So
fire away, man.
All right,
Upper Decker.
Number 3 is the whipped cream room bomb. Y'all ever heard of that one?
I don't know about whipped cream. I know about shaving cream.
Yeah, it's the same thing.
Record sleeve?
Yeah, or balloons or whoopee cushions. You fill them up, stick the little part under the door, and then stomp on them, and bomb their room.
Yeah.
Yeah, whipped cream or shaving cream.
The bombs that I never did that. I heard about it from your dad. And it was they used record sleeves.
Oh, nice. Fruit doesn't fall very far.
The MRE heaters.
That's an actual bomb.
Right.
That's what I'm
talking about, bombs.
That's what
we would
cushion
do
underneath the door.
We'd throw a heater in a bottle with some water and then just walk by one of our friends' dorm rooms and just open the door and toss that in there and close it and just walk on down the hall. And they thought we were just throwing trash in their room, but then it would blow up.
And it's not quiet.
No, it's pretty loud.
It's a loud boom.
Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome.
I did, with those same deals, I used to cut, and this was just for fun out at night, the glow sticks and use that as the liquid. Like put a bunch of that liquid in with the heaters, and then when it exploded, that glow in the dark liquid would go everywhere.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Which are not in my top 3, by the way.
Oh, your top 3 ought to be good.
Maybe.
All right. Well, number 2 is the large trash can, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, how many gallons is that?
55.
55.
Metal?
No, just
plastic?
The plastic ones. Trash can full of water or any kind of liquid substance leaned up against the door.
Ooh, yeah.
And then you knock. Hey, man, what are you doing in there? Oh, no, let me grab the door.
And they open up and it floods their room.
Yeah.
You used to do this to rooms of the house that you lived in?
Oh, yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
Did you get your deposit back?
Well, this is a frat house. You paid to live there every month with no return.
Yeah.
Except just fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Destruction.
Sounds like it.
Yeah. And then number 1, actually didn't take full part in this, just half part in this one.
You were there. You witnessed it.
Yeah. So we were all sitting out on the front porch and somebody decided to, well, the practical joke is take a poop in a plastic bag and then you put it in their microwave and you turn it on for like 2 hours. And that happened.
That's gross.
But my part in it was, so my friend took a dump in a bag, went in the room, put it in the guy's microwave and ran out and locked the door, but he forgot to start the microwave because he was so like, he was like amped up, you know? And, so I was like, well, I'll climb up there and start the microwave. So I scaled the wall outside the frat house because we always left our windows open and climbed through the window.
But to let the mold smell from the wet
That's
carpets
right.
dry out. Yeah.
So I started the microwave and went out the door and locked it.
Dude.
That is the most disgusting smell ever.
I can't even fathom.
Now, when it bakes, the smell coming out of the microwave actually cooks into your sheets, your clothes, any fabric that's in that room.
Oh, man.
Destroyed. And I know this because a year later it happened to me.
Same thing that make you laugh will make you cry.
So what comes around goes around. Yep. You'll poop in the microwave.
That's funny. All right, Matt.
Oh, you want me to go?
Do any of yours involve bodily functions?
Bodily fluids.
Yeah.
Maybe. There are a few, but I'm not going to mention those. Man, I think I'm having a hard time trying to figure out which one would be number 3.
It's okay. Nobody's going to call and argue with you that you got them out of order.
Yeah. Number 3, I guess, would be the fart spray.
Yeah, okay.
And I found today that this is going to be okay to put on the podcast because this person does not listen to the podcast.
Oh, good. This will be the one episode they listen to.
So I don't know if you've ever been around, but Brandon.
Yeah.
So I bought a bottle of fart spray like 2 years ago, and meaning to just get anybody here in the office. And Dave's kind of my
nemesis,
my partner. Dave is my partner on this deal. And so anytime Brandon comes back with a drink, we will spray the straw or the lid so that every time that he's taking a drink, and he'll sit over there because what's he do all day? He's casting people and messing with their feet.
Yeah.
And when it sits long enough, it can really smell like somebody's bunk feet. So he'll sit there and take a drink and go, and you see him, he'll be in the bathroom washing his hands like 500 times. And then he picks it up and takes a drink and goes, golly, and just, I can't get this off my hands. He's never put it together.
That's hilarious.
That it's actually on his lid. And we even got him because he always had this, prior to coronavirus, he always had this nasal spray that he kept at his desk. And so I sprayed the tip of that.
Oh, gosh.
And he put up and sprayed up his nose and be like, oh, this stuff's bad. throw it away. He has never caught on and still doesn't know. And I just found out today because I wasn't going to bring that one up because I don't want to ruin the joke around here at the office. Because every time, I mean, we'll we'll get him about once every couple of months, and he's just like, what is going on? I just smelling everywhere. So that's number 3.
Have you seen that TikTok video with the fart spray?
No,
there's a lot of them.
The one where the kid's driving and he shows it to the camera. It says fart spray, and his grandmother is in the car with him.
No.
And he sprays it, and he waits a second for it to and he goes, "Oh, Grandma, wake up." And she starts freaking out like, pull over, I crap myself.
Oh, no. Oh, no.
Oh, man, it's so good. Anyway, go ahead. Number 2.
I do like some of those videos. They get pretty good.
They are pretty funny.
Number 2 would be, and my number 1 and number 2 are both with Wounded Warrior Outdoors. And number 2 being, you remember we had Josh Sust on the podcast.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So we were turkey hunting in Kentucky, and Josh had all excited that he'd got this bird down, and then because you're allowed 2 birds in Kentucky, and so he'd gone back out, and then he and his guide ended up doubling up, and then he sends us a picture, and like all of the rest of the people were really struggling to get birds on the ground, and here's Josh, he's got 2 down, and so he sends us the picture, and we're just like, no, that's the same bird. That's the picture of the same bird that you just took this morning. Nuh-uh. I'm gonna show you guys when I get there. So there's this place called the Coon Dog Inn, and it's a kind of just a diner, and everybody in town goes there either for breakfast or for lunch. And so that's where we would go after the morning hunt. We'd go there and we'd get some breakfast, whatever, and just kind of eat and talk with everybody, have a good time. And so he shows up, and I see Ron just kind of disappear. I'm like, okay, well, I guess Ron's leaving. And so he comes in, and then Ron Josh is talking and telling the story about these 2 birds and how they doubled up, and at the same time they shot, and both birds went down. And we're like, yeah, that didn't happen. You only got the 1 bird. And he goes, no, I'll prove it to you. And so I was like, well, show us. He goes, I'll bring it in. Okay, bring it in. Like the diner's like, yeah, bring your dead turkey in here.
Yeah.
And so he goes out, looks in the truck, and the bird's gone.
So that's what Ron went and did.
Ron went and stole the bird. So Josh comes back in, and he is furious.
Yeah.
He's like, and I mean, he's not using polite language. And in this diner filled with all the locals and, all of us for WWO, he goes, well, I'm trying to find out how I want to say this. Which one of you blank locals took my blanking bird out of the blanking truck? Because I know none of my brothers would ever do this to me. But I mean, and then he got in his truck, sped off, went back home. Like he was packing up to go back home to Ohio. Like,
oh wow,
he's like mad.
Yeah.
And we're sitting there like, this is the best practical joke we've ever played. Like he's literally going home.
He's going across state lines.
And so then Ron, he went back, and Lisa's asking him what's wrong, because he went back to the house, and he goes, something playing joke on me. They took my bird. I'm leaving. And she calls Ron. What are you guys doing to Josh?
Yeah.
And so I was like, what are you talking about? We haven't done anything. And Josh never went, because the one truck, I mean, he's out in the parking lot looking in the back of people's trucks, looking in the back of cars.
Right.
The one truck that he didn't look in was Ron's truck, because he never expected Ron to pull that on him ever.
Yeah.
And to this day, that's still one of the best practical
his
jokes.
nickname ought to be Turkey.
He was definitely acting like one.
Yeah.
So it was just, and every time I think about it, just him peeling out of the Coon Dog, like cussing everybody out in the diner and then peeling out is still one of the greatest memories I've got. And then number 1, along those same lines is, for WWO, we have a quail hunt that we do, prior to our big fundraiser, in February every year, which unfortunately this year, due to the coronavirus, we're postponing until 23. But traditionally we have a quail hunt a couple of days prior to everything getting started. And this year, this particular year that we were doing this, it was a guide, and they've got these expensive hunting dogs. Mm-hmm. Like they're incredibly trained hunting dogs. They're very high dollar hunting dogs. And Ron sets the tone, and he goes out and he's meeting with the guides and meeting with the guy who runs the portion with the dogs. And he's like, hey, look, I've got going through the injuries, Matt, he's missing, one leg above the knee, a leg below the knee. And we got another guy, he's a single BK, he'll be fine. This person, is just more invisible injuries. They don't really have the physical injuries. And then this person is this. And he goes, and then we've got Brian, Brian's missing his right arm below the elbow. He's missing his right leg, and he's got 2 fingers left on his left hand. And he's blind. And they're like, well, we can't do this. And Ron plays a really serious role, and you never really know when Ron's joking. That's why he's the king of practical jokes, is because are you serious or not? And so they're like, well, we don't know how we're going to do that. And Ron's like, what do you mean you don't know how we're going to do that? This is what we do.
Right.
I mean, he goes, we adapt and we overcome. He goes, I'm not going to bring this warrior out here and tell him he's going to
sit on the sidelines
and then not be able to hunt. We're going to figure it out. And guy's like, oh, man, I don't know. He goes, now here's what I'll tell you. He goes, we have done this with Brian before, and he shot 2 dogs. Now, one died, one survived. It doesn't work right, but it survived. He goes, and if that should happen, he goes, now we are a 501c3. He goes, so I can't give you any money, but I'll write you a tax receipt for the dog.
Right.
And this guy's just like, no. Well, for everybody out there, Brian's not actually blind. He is missing his right arm, 2 fingers left on his left hand, and he is an above the knee amputee. And he's an incredible actor. So Brian comes out, and he's got his glasses on, and he's walking around and holding somebody's shoulder and stumbling over stuff. And we hand him the shotgun, and the shotgun's upside down. And so he goes, and we're just going to do some practice shots, and the shells fall out on the ground. And Brian, you got the gun upside down. Oh. So he pulls it back over, and then we load it back up for him and say, all right, you ready to go? And they flush up a couple of birds. The birds fly out to the right, and we're like, birds. And Brian goes directly to the left and shoots, boom, boom, out to the left. Like, the birds are over here. It's the funniest thing I've ever seen. And this guide is just like, I mean, at this point,
we're all dead.
He's got his dog, and he's just hugging that dog like, do not go out there. And so we're like, well, Brian, have you ever hunted quail before? And he's like, no. Well, there's your problem right there. He doesn't even know what he's shooting at. And so we get a couple of birds that he's got in the back of the truck, and we hand him the bird, and Brian's feeling it, and he's like, oh, yeah. Oh, okay. Yeah, I get it. Okay. And so the next flush, 2 birds come up, boom, boom. Birds dropped, and stone cold dead. And this guy's just like, his mouth dropped. He's like, no way. And from that moment on, like, that dude did not believe that Brian could actually see. Like, then we had to convince him that Brian can actually see.
Yeah.
Because he did not, like, he'd come up all day. He'd be like, come on, man. Can you actually, dude, I can see. But that dude was so stressed about his dogs. And that was the funniest thing. I've got one picture of it. I wish that was one of those times I didn't video, and that would have been a classic to video. But that would be my number one. I
introduced a couple guys to duck hunting a few weeks ago, 2 different times actually. And I said, here's the 3 main rules you need to know. Rule number 1, don't shoot a man's dog. Rule number 2, don't shoot a man. And rule number 3, I can't remember what it was. Don't shoot a decoy or something like that. And they were, each time I gave this lesson, Gage was one of them. And they were like, don't shoot a dog is before don't shoot a man. I'm like, well, you know why don't shoot a dog is first. No, I don't. Well, if you shoot a man's dog, that man is going to shoot you. If you shoot the man, he won't be able to shoot you back. Like, so rule number 1 to protect yourself is don't shoot his dog because you're going to get shot right afterwards.
Yeah.
Make him pretty mad.
Yeah.
Pretty mad. All right.
Wise words.
So those are pretty good. My number 3, I lived in, actually, I think this was before I lived in that house, but I lived in a house with a bunch of dudes it's five guys. We didn't make a restaurant, but there was 5 of us in there.
You should have.
It was before I moved in. The year before I moved in, I was hanging out there all the time. And for some, I don't know how it ended up there, but these decorative wooden pastel painted decorative rabbits. Like just, got a wooden pedestal and there's this flat, carved out little pink and light blue. I don't know why they were there, but one of them was just like a rabbit in a typical bunny rabbit, on all fours position. And the other one was a rabbit standing up with his ears tucked back real close because it was a cheap wooden carving. And it just, so you just saw the head up top, kind of looked like a squirrel. So everybody called that one the Squirrel. And, what progressed from somebody put the squirrel under one of the guy's pillows, and then, somebody put it in a cabinet, to somebody then, whoever found it would then just hide it somewhere else. You ended up in a cereal box. So somebody came in there to get cereal one morning and dumped out the squirrel. And then another guy ended up in class and opened his backpack and there's the squirrel. Just kept progressing. Everybody graduated. And, with college things, come and college things go. One of the guys is getting married years later. And the church that they were at had a place on the floor. This is back before flat screens. And so they had plexiglass over a tube TV built into the stage. So the TV's at an angle. You're standing on stage, you can look down and see it. And they happen to be standing right there for the prayer time, like with the pastor. So that dude, literally Aubrey, bow your heads and pray. But he busted out laughing because he put his head down and the squirrel staring at him under the floor. Nobody else knows what's going on. The bride doesn't know what's going on. He just sees this and he starts laughing in the middle of his wedding. So
that's awesome.
I mean, its last appearance, and I was in college a long time ago, starting in a year that begins with 19. Like up to 5 or 6 years ago, it ended up in my brother-in-law's house somehow in North Carolina. So this thing is still out there and still going on journeys and showing up in weird and random places. Wow. So the wooden squirrel.
That's the long con.
The long con.
Yeah, it's minor. Nothing's getting damaged, but if it shows up, I mean, it's awesome. Like it would be neat,
That's like an awesome practical joke.
Yeah. So number 2, I call it false identity. And one of the places I worked at in Louisiana, they gave out company shirts like it was going out of style. So everybody that worked there had one. And we were a somewhat desirable place to work, had good pay for hourly workers. And so if it wouldn't be unheard of to be around town in your shirt and somebody say, hey, can I get a job out there? Well, I have a good friend of mine that you guys have met, Griff. And he's got some distinguishable features about himself. He's tall, somewhat balding and whatnot. And we found this out, which was pretty funny because one day our production manager comes in furious at Griff, like specifically. It's like, I can't believe that you're going around town telling people that you're me. Well, come to find out, because Bruce, the production manager, was in charge of all the hiring and firing of all our hourly workforce. So he would be the one that would give you a job out there to work on there. So anytime somebody asked Griff on the street about, hey, can I come get a job out there? He would say, absolutely you can. We will hire you on the spot. My name is Bruce Moore. You show up and say, Bruce Moore said that I got a job here. Like,
I remember you telling me this one. Yeah.
So what happened, this shop just down the street, that we all went to get our vehicle inspections because we found one that would pencil whip it. In Louisiana, you got to get your vehicle inspected every year. And, they check window tint and I don't know what else. But, yeah, just find somebody that doesn't take your time or make you repair something. And so everybody at work would go to this place. And Bruce went up there one day and was like, hey, I need to get this. And she saw his shirt. And, I see you work at such and such. And he's like, yeah. She said, well, I'm getting a job there. And he's like, oh, really? Who said you're getting a job there? Well, Bruce Moore said I'm getting a job there. And he's like, I'm Bruce Moore. And she's like, no, you're not. And he's like, look at my registration on the vehicle there. Yeah. No, that's not you. You're doing this for Bruce. He's about this tall. He's going bald, described Griff to a T. And then that's how he found out that that's Bruce Moore was my buddy Griff. So he got mad and come in and chewed him out for that. But apparently Griff had been doing that for years. Like anybody that he saw, like, oh, yeah, you got a job, guaranteed. You just show up and you say Bruce Moore said I'm hiring you, and
that's awesome.
Which
another long con.
I like those, but my number one is not that. Number one, I got in the middle. I guess you could say I was an instigator. I can't remember what the first prank was, but me and my buddy Lance pranked my buddy Gabe in college. And we did something to his car. I can't remember what it was. And then, Gabe's pretty upset about it. And I'm like, well, we're going to have to get Lance back. So I'm playing both teams here. Well, what are we going to do? Well, I'm like, well, Lance is out of town this weekend, but his truck, he went with somebody. So his truck's at his apartment. I think we ought to steal his truck and bring it over here. There's like a big sycamore tree or something. Like, just fill his cab up full of leaves. Like, fill it up. We'll steal his truck, drive it over here to the tree. It was in front of that house that I lived in. So he's going to see it. I mean, he'll come across it and, it'll just be full of leaves. And I guarantee you, this kind of guy Lance is, he'll just carve out enough leaves to sit in the driver's seat and then just leave a window down, which he had a window that was busted out and he hadn't fixed it. So it was just a window open. He'll just drive around until the leaves all blow out of his truck for however long. And so this was the great idea. So we're like, yeah, that's what we're going to do. We got to go steal his truck first. So we go over to his apartment and his roommate was there, along with his roommate's parents. And we were like, So we go in, hang out with the folks, and we don't want to, like, why are you guys here? Oh, we're just coming by to see Lance. Oh, Lance is out of town. Oh, that's a bummer, But then we didn't want to steal his truck in front of the parents because then the parents would think bad about his friends in college, all this other kind of stuff. So we were like, well, we can't. So we walk, hey, bye. We're standing there next to his truck in his little driveway. We're like, what can we do? And to his truck, like right now. And where you wouldn't notice. And Gabe's like, I got an idea, but I need a bottle. And I'm like, well, so we go digging around Lance's truck and we found an empty Coke bottle. So we proceed to fill his windshield washer reservoir with urine. And then leave.
Nice.
Months later, Lance is like, man, the weirdest thing happened to me the other day. And I'm like, what? He's like, I was driving back. He was a youth pastor some 30 miles down the road. And I noticed how dirty my windshield was. And I just hit my spray and instantly the whole windshield just turns yellow. And the smell. He's like, oh my gosh. And up until that point, I had forgotten that we had done that. Like I didn't even think about it. Because it had been months that had gone by. And I'm like, you got to be kidding me. What could cause that? He's like, I don't know, but it stinks bad, so that was one that it took a while to come around, but that was a pretty classic one too.
Did y'all ever tell him that was y'all?
I doubt it. You just kind of let that one go.
Does Lance listen to the show?
I don't know.
Lance,
you'll find out here pretty soon.
He's in Georgia right now.
You got urined.
Yeah, it was all Gabe. I didn't have anything to do with it.
That's awesome.
So anyway, that's my top number one practical joke. So we're gonna move on to a good word from Mr. Troy 3-Shot Trussell. What you got for us, man?
Yeah, so last year I started reading this book called The Songs of Jesus. It's by Timothy Keller. Mm-hmm. And it's just a daily devotional through the Psalms. And it's dated every day. And I think I started back in August last year, so I'm still making my way through it. And I thought January 2nd was a good one. So I just wanted to share that today. So if you're looking here, if you're on YouTube, you can see it. It goes day to day, and so it just has like the psalm and then
little devotional
that he kind of commentaries the psalm, and then he has a prayer that you can read and pray afterwards. So Psalm 2, 1 through 4. Why did the nations conspire and the peoples plot in vain? The kings of the earth rise up, and the rulers band together against the Lord and against his anointed, saying, let us break their chains and throw off their shackles. The one enthroned in heaven laughs. The Lord scoffs at them. And then he says, no intimidation. Each day, the media highlights new things to fear. The powers that be, in quotes, in society tell us that obedience to God shackles us, limiting our freedom. But in reality, liberation comes only through serving the one who created us. Those people and forces that appear to rule the world are all under his lordship, and one day they will know it. God still reigns, and we can take refuge in him from all of our fears. So to be intimidated by the world is as spiritually fatal as being overly attracted to it. So I feel like that
kind of relevant with the virus talk, huh?
Yeah, it kind of ties in with kind of the past 2 years that we've had under coronavirus, and just the media that just brings everything and puts everything out of proportion, and
Yeah, and I don't know, it's pretty evident that there was an effort to make people as scared as they could possibly be.
Right.
So that they would listen to whatever they were trying to say. And it kind of backfired, I think.
Yeah.
But that goes straight to that point,
Yeah.
Don't fear humans.
Yeah. Fear of the Lord. So. All right. What do you think about it, Matt? Looks like you got something wrestling around.
You with us, man?
In there.
I am.
Okay.
I'm just listening,
Okay.
processing. I don't have anything to say right now.
Very good.
I will.
Why don't you take us on out of here?
I can do that. I think I got the right button this time. I did.
All right. Well, thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for listening or watching another episode of the Hardheaded Podcast. Please rate and review on your podcast application. Give us some stars and a good rating.
Thumbs up.
If you like the show. Please share this podcast with others. That helps us get the word out of what we're sharing.
Sounds good. Thanks for listening, and we'll talk to you next week. You gave me that look like, what do I say next?
I was thinking.
I feel you.